All right, so we're going to start notes in chapter 2. The first section we're talking about is inductive reasoning. So that is in your book on page 54, if you want to kind of follow along there as well. So inductive reasoning is the process of coming to a general conclusion by finding a pattern in several specific examples. So basically, you're given a pattern and you have to kind of find the next several things in that pattern. So let's write down that definition and do some examples. All right, so again, it's the process of coming to a general conclusion by finding a pattern in several specific examples. So if you need to, take a second to pause and write that down, and then we will keep going. All right, so then let's continue looking at these examples here in your book. So the first example says to make a conjecture. So conjecture is just like the conclusion or the next things in the pattern, right? So make a conjecture describing the pattern in each series of examples. And then find the next 2 items in the series. So the first example says if classes begin at 8:15, then 9:05, then 9:55, right? So then that means that the next class starts 50 minutes, right, after the first one, right? So 8:15 to 9:05 is 50 minutes. 9:05 to 9:55 is 50 minutes. So then 9:55, and then we add 50 minutes to that, right? So that would mean our next class would start at 10:45, and then 50 more minutes would be 11:35, right? So similar to our schedule at school, like we start at 8:10, and we go to 9:45, and so on, because we have 45-minute classes with 5-minute breaks. Right, so it's just looking at what you're given, trying to find the pattern, and try and figure out how your next shape should be drawn. So then in example B, right, we've got a picture. So we start with 1 dot, and then we have 3 dots, and then we have 6 dots, and then our next one is, I ran out of room. I have my screen split on my iPad, which I'm not used to, guys, so bear with me. Then we have 10 dots. So there's 1, 3, 6, and 10. Right, so in this example, right, all we're doing is, you can tell by looking at the pictures, right? We start with 1, but then with this one, here's our 1, we add 1 to each end, right? We're adding another row here, and a row of 4, so we have like row 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So our next one then would have 5, right? Shrink that a little bit so I have more room. Right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 5, 1. Nope. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Alright, I did a very bad drawing that, but you kind of get the idea. Right, so we've got our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mine are a little curvy. And then the next one would have 6. Alright, so again, if you look at example B there on this page, you'll see. Right, so it says, like that pattern is that each additional row contains 1 more point than the row above it. Alright, and then let's go to another slide looking at example C here. So we have a square with a diagonal line, a circle, and a triangle, a square, a dotted diagonal with a square and a circle, and then we have a square with a solid diagonal, a triangle, and a square. So from this we can tell that we've got somewhat of an alternating pattern with our diagonals, right? We have solid, dotted, solid. So our next one would be dotted, right? So square, dotted, diagonal. All right, now we need to look at these shapes in here. So here we have a circle, triangle, and then square. So I'm kind of looking at this whole thing, right? So I have circle, triangle, square, circle, triangle, square. So that means this bottom I'm going to go circle, triangle, right? So circle, triangle. Then my next one would have that solid diagonal, square, circle. So sometimes there's two different things you have to be looking at once. So just pick out what you can and draw even just part of it like I did, and then go back and look at your whole picture and try and figure out some of the other pieces. All right, so that is basically what we are doing, right? So sometimes we'll be dealing with some numbers there. I'm looking in the book real quick. Yeah, so some of them, like, you'll get a pattern of numbers. So you have to try and guess the next number in the sequence. So sometimes you're multiplying by the same thing, you're adding the same thing, dividing the same thing, using exponents, and so on. Right, so that's going to be in your assignment tomorrow. But all you needed to do for today is just take these notes. I know it's not a lot, it's a fairly short section. Get these down, so then tomorrow you can do the assignment. If you want to go ahead and do it today and post it under Friday, that's perfectly fine. Then next week we will continue on with our next section in chapter 2. If you haven't turned in your test corrections, please turn those in by tomorrow. If you don't turn them in tomorrow, your grade stays as it is.